So I've always been the kind of person with a crazy amount of interests. I always love finding something new to try out and get obsessed over for a period of time, sometimes short, sometimes long, who knows. But over the course of my 26 ooh, oh, fucking unk. Anyway, over over the course of my about 26 years of life, I've never found that one thing that just sticks, that I consistently have the interest or desire or motivation to do and pursue consistently. And if you're listening, you might be someone like me, and trust me, I know how frustrating it can be. And in fact, for a long time, it was one of the biggest sources of my frustration and even depression in life, not feeling like I can just figure it out, And I felt like if I never find that quote unquote thing, that I'll just be doomed or, screwed in life, But I had a change of perspective that really helped me a lot mentally and really helped me to start moving forward. And so that's what I want to share with you all today. So to get right into it, when we think of life purpose, we often think about like a singular thing, that we all have this one singular purpose that we're going to find and then throw ourselves at with a fiery passion. And, it's often what we think of when it comes to people who are inspiring. And to a degree, I do think that's a real thing. And it's certainly true for some people, but I don't think it's the whole picture, But instead, for the sake of this video, I want to reframe the idea of purpose and share the change of perspective that I had. So for the sake of the video, let's replace the word purpose with the word focus instead. We often think of purpose in terms of a thing that we put all of our focus on. But what I want to suggest is that purpose, or in this case, focus, comes in multiple forms. Focus is much like a camera lens. You can be a person with a very narrow focus, or a person with a medium focus, or lastly, a person with a very wide focus. People with a narrow focus in life are much like a camera lens that's super zoomed in. They might have one thing that they're really, really passionate about in life and dedicate much of their life to focusing on that one thing. And that one thing brings them a lot of purpose. And, often these are the kinds of people we think of when it comes to purpose, who are usually the center of very inspiring media, whether that be athletes, musicians, artists, etc. But in my opinion, not everyone is made like these people. People with a medium focus often have several things that they're passionate about. They're more like a camera lens that isn't super zoomed in, but also doesn't have a very wide field of view. These are the kinds of people who might have a successful business, but are also passionate about painting or other forms of expression. Or the typical Renaissance man or jack of all trades who's skilled at various things. These kinds of people are also what's thought of when it comes to purpose and media and, inspirational content and movie shows, all that. And, it's perfectly believable for us to think that a person can have multiple things that they're passionate about. But what if you don't feel like you fall into either of these camps? The last camp is the one that I fall in, and that many other people may fall in and don't realize. And I feel like it can bring a lot of confusion and pain and struggle to our lives. But the last group is the group with a super wide focus. Think of like a camera that has a super wide field of view and can capture lots of things in the frame. The focus isn't on any one particular thing. And so often the picture isn't about one particular thing in view, but about everything in the view together, about all the things in that wide view coming together to form one vast cohesive picture. If you're this kind of person, you may find that in life you don't feel super passionate about any one thing. And sometimes if you do find passion for something, it doesn't last forever. You may have tried many different things in life, but eventually you lose interest in them. Sometimes it comes back momentarily, but after a while it fades again. And I myself am this kind of person, and I've struggled with it for so long. But here's the important thing that I really want to share with you. If you're a person with a wide focus, your purpose might be very broad. All of your interests may connect in a way that's much broader and that you may not have realized. And you aren't defined by the specific individual things that you do in your life. And your life will never be about those individual things. It'll never be about being a painter or an athlete or a doctor or a chef. These things will never be able to define you as a person, because your purpose is so much bigger and broader than that. So let me explain what I mean. Instead of your purpose being about painting or music or science, your purpose might be something broad like inspiring others. Your purpose could be helping others in need. Your purpose could be creating community, or your purpose could be upkeeping and repairing things, or making people laugh. You know, if you have a wide focus in life, it's not about the specific things you do. Everything you do is just a medium for you to express your larger purpose. If your purpose is simply to inspire others, you can do that by speaking or writing or painting or music or anything that you feel called to. If your purpose is to make people laugh, you could do that through stand-up or movies or sketches or writing. If your purpose is helping others in need, you could do that through charity or the health industry or motivational content or social services or even creating new inventions or whatever, etc. You know, if you have a wide focus in life, you don't have to choose one thing, and you likely won't be able to anyway. You can choose however many mediums you like to fulfill your larger purpose, and you'll never be defined by being a doctor or being a chef or being an athlete, because your purpose is just so much wider than those singular things. Those individual things that you do aren't the point of your life. The point is just to be who you are, and any medium you feel attracted to is just a means for you to express who you are, which is very wide and very broad, but still very significant nonetheless. If you're like myself, you might have a hard time finding motivation or inspiration, and potentially one of the reasons for that is that you're focusing too much on the individual medium, you know, the individual thing, thinking that those things are supposed to be your purpose. But if you focus too hard on the mediums themselves, you'll find that they won't feel motivating enough. They won't be broad enough. Instead, consider that your focus or your purpose might be something broader. And if you put your thought to it and something comes up in your mind that clicks, try it out. Try dedicating your energy to that larger focus. Dedicate as much of your effort and inspiration to fulfilling that one broader focus, and use any mediums that you enjoy or are inspired by or feel called to as a means to fulfill that larger focus. To use myself as an example, I found that my focus is simply to inspire others. It's not something I'm always conscious of, but deep down, I want other people to feel like they can heal or that they can overcome any circumstance they find themselves in, and that it's possible to achieve the things they desire. You know, something deep in my being feels like activated, feels pulled whenever I see someone struggling mentally or emotionally. And like, if a friend or a family member comes to me with their problems, like I could literally sit there from sunup until sundown working through it with them, and my whole being would feel compelled to do so until either we like come to some sort of solution or some sort of relief, or the other person is just literally too exhausted to continue. For me, whenever I try to focus on one singular medium or path, I'll just completely lose interest in it if I'm either not having fun with it or like some sort of interest or engagement with it, or if part of me just doesn't feel like it would lead to inspiring others in some way. So like for me, it's just as important that what I do helps others in some way as it is that I'm enjoying the thing that I'm doing. It can't be one or the other. It has to be both for me. For a long time in my life, I try to just do the things that I enjoy or am interested in, but I usually only take interest in it when it's, you know, new or there's something new within it that I haven't explored yet. But eventually, after the novelty fades, I lose any sort of like emotional investment or attachment to the activity. It's not that I flat out hate it, but part of me deep down just says, why am I doing this? Like, what's the point of me doing this right now? And so for me to be doing anything long term, I really need like a broader aim or objective that matters to me in order to engage in it. At least when it comes to work, like I can't do anything unless I have a strong reason for doing so. One of my favorite movies that I've watched in the past few years is the Pixar movie Soul. And for those of you who have already seen the movie, you can probably already see where I'm going with this. But if you haven't, I'm going to get into some quick spoilers. So if you haven't watched it yet and you don't want to hear spoilers, skip ahead to the timestamp. But yeah, it's been a little while since I've watched this movie, but basically the movie follows this middle-aged man named Joe who's extremely passionate about jazz, but his life hasn't panned out the way that he wanted so far, and he currently works as a middle school band teacher. He gets into an accident one day and dies, but when it's time for him to like cross over into the afterlife, he like refuses and runs away to this area where new souls are about to be born and where they like the new souls select a purpose for their life before heading to Earth. And so Joe gets like mistaken for one of the mentors for the new souls, and he gets paired with this one particular soul named 22, I think, who for the life of her can't find a purpose and therefore just refuses to go to Earth. No matter like who tries to mentor 22 or help her find her purpose, she either loses interest or just like takes no interest in it at all. And basically 22 ends up in Joe's body, and the movie follows the two of them as Joe tries to get his life back and also try to like help 22 find out what her purpose is. But yeah, here are the real spoilers. But basically over the course of the movie, as 22 experiences life on Earth through like Joe's body, she falls in love with life itself. You know, like the little things like eating food, with exploring New York City, with talking to people, you know, with all the little mundane things in everyday life. And ultimately she finds that her purpose is simply to just experience and enjoy Earth. And eventually Joe also has a similar revelation when he like finally joins the jazz band of his dreams, but like a part of him still feels empty after he finally gets the thing that he's been chasing his whole life. And there was also a scene that I really liked where I think 22 asked Joe's friend, who's a barber, if he enjoys just doing the same thing every day. And he says something to the effect of like, yeah, cutting hair lets me get to talk to people and have a sense of community. And that's what I really enjoy most. But yeah, that's like the end of the spoilers. But yeah, it's like a great movie, and that shit honestly made me like sob when I watched it the first time. And I know I probably really butchered the plot, but anyway, I highly recommend watching it if you haven't. But the reason I bring that up is because that movie really illustrates how purpose doesn't have to be this singular thing or this like activity or this like, you know, thing that we focus on. And the barber is a perfect example because for him, cutting hair isn't the point of his life. It's just a medium for him to fulfill his real broader purpose, which is connecting with other people and creating community. It's not that he doesn't enjoy cutting hair, but cutting hair isn't the point. It's not the whole point, at least. I think people who have a wide focus or, you know, like a wide purpose in life really struggle so much in our society because everything about the way society is designed and like the rhetoric you hear from so many different angles essentially boils down to like, you know, find that thing or find that niche or whatever, you know, get a degree or get a skill, yada, yada. And it's not that those things are wrong, but the focus is entirely on the individual, you know, thing, the activity or the medium itself. And a large chunk of people simply aren't wired to operate in that way or to focus in that way. And so when we don't find that particular thing or can't focus in that way, we feel like failures and screw ups. And that shame only compounds and makes the problem even worse and makes it harder to have the mental clarity to find like actual solutions. But if you're able to broaden your perspective on what purpose is, you know, maybe thinking of it more in the sense of like a camera lens, a focus, whether it being a narrow or a medium or a wide focus, like, or any just other broader sense of purpose in general, you might be able to come to ideas and solutions that you never would have thought of. Like, for example, you know, similar to the barber in the movie, a person whose focus is like building community, they might have a ton of different skills. Like they might be someone who say owns a jazz bar, but also likes to host a run club and likes having people over their house. And like, in order to do those three things, there's so many skills that could be involved, whether it's like, you know, management or music or cooking or bartending, fitness, marketing, conflict resolution, you know, self-discipline, investing, and like the list just goes on and on and on. But this kind of person, you know, couldn't possibly hyper focus on any one of those individual things because those individual things aren't the point. The point is just to be a person who brings people together. And to achieve that, they employ every skill that's both necessary and that they're inspired to, you know, to get the job done. And the last thing I want to say is that if you're like a wide focused person, in my opinion, it's very important to be open to all the possible ways that things can come to you, that, you know, abundance can come to you. And this applies to everyone, to be honest, but even more so for like wide focused people, because if you try to focus too much on money itself or resources coming to you in like one singular way, thinking that that's the only possible way, then you may mentally block yourself off to so many other ideas and ways that things can come to you. You may or may not be like the jack of all trades type. You might have 5 things you really like or are good at, or you might have only 1. But the difference is that none of those things are the point. The point is whatever your larger, broader focus is. And since your focus is broad, you know, the things you need can come to you in many different ways. Abundance can be money, but it can also be like a gift. It can be, you trading things. It can be literally ideas. It can be information. There's so many resources that can come to you and things that can come to you in so many different ways. And also, I want to shout out really quick a book that a friend recommended to me years ago that was very enlightening and helpful for me at the time. It's by Barbara Sher, and it's called Refuse to Choose. And I may or may not have already recommended it on this channel, but if I have, it's because it's that good. But basically, she calls people with many interests scanners, and she classifies scanners into many different subtypes of scanners and gives practical advice for each type. So like if you're looking for some more practical ideas on how to be a person with many interests, or that no singular interest really stands out for you, I highly recommend checking out that book. But yeah, I just wanted to share that quickly. If you made it to the end of the video, I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed, want more, feel free to like, subscribe, comment down, your experiences and opinions. I'd love to hear them. And I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.